The moment begins quietly, the way the most unforgettable moments often do. No grand announcement, no dramatic cue, just Taehyung and Jungkook standing too close, their shoulders brushing in a way that felt unconscious. The cameras were rolling, the crowd was roaring, yet somehow the world around them seemed to fade. Fans would later say this was the exact moment Taekook forgot about the camera. Jungkook's laugh came first, soft and unguarded, the kind he rarely lets slip in public anymore. Taehyung leaned in instinctively, not performing, not posing, just responding. Their eyes met, held a second too long, and something shifted. It was subtle, but to those watching closely, it felt like witnessing a private conversation happening in plain sight. Then, just as suddenly, Taehyung stepped away. At first, no one thought much of it. Performers leave the stage all the time, wardrobe changes, quick breaks, technical cues. Jungkook stayed behind, nodding to the staff, rolling his shoulders, pacing in that familiar way he does when he's waiting. But his eyes kept drifting to the same direction, following where Taehyung had disappeared. Minutes passed. Long enough for fans to start wondering. When Taehyung finally returned, the energy was different. It wasn't anything obvious at first. He smiled, waved, slipped back into position like nothing had happened. But then the clip slowed down. Screenshots began circulating. Fans zoomed in, frame by frame, breath held. There, just at the edge of his collar, faint but unmistakable, was a mark that hadn't been there before. A hicke. The internet froze, then exploded. Jungkook noticed too. You could see it in the way his expression changed, not shock, not anger, but something softer and far more dangerous, awareness. His eyes flicked to Taehyung's neck, then away, then back again. His lips pressed together as if holding back a smile he didn't want the world to see. For a brief second, Jungkook reached out, fingers hovering near Taehyung's collar before stopping himself. The gesture was aborted, but not unnoticed. Taehyung tilted his head slightly, a silent acknowledgement, as if to say, I know. I didn't forget. They didn't address it. They never do. Instead, they moved closer, not touching, but close enough that the air between them felt charged. Taehyung leaned in to whisper something, and Jungkook's ears turned red almost instantly. Fans would replay that moment endlessly, trying to read lips, to decode meaning, to understand what could possibly have been said. What struck people most wasn't the mark itself, but the way neither of them seemed concerned about hiding it. If anything, Taehyung seemed calmer, more grounded. Jungkook, on the other hand, looked flustered in the most familiar way, biting his lip, avoiding eye contact with the cameras, glancing back at Taehyung like he was checking whether this was really happening. As the performance continued, they slipped back into rhythm, but the dynamic had shifted. Every shared glance felt heavier. Every near touch carried intent. It was as if something private had happened backstage, something that followed them back into the spotlight whether they wanted it to or not. Fans began to say this wasn't carelessness. It was comfort. Only people who feel safe forget where they are. Only people who trust each other completely stop performing when the cameras are still on. The hicke wasn't just a mark, it was evidence, to fans, of a moment where Taekook existed without filters, without strategy, without distance. Later that night, clips would surface of Jungkook subtly adjusting Taehyung's collar, a protective gesture done while pretending to fix a mic. Taehyung didn't flinch. He smiled softly, eyes crinkling, as if reassured by the touch. Nothing was confirmed. Nothing was said. But the silence spoke louder than any statement ever could. In the days that followed, fans debated endlessly. Was it makeup? Lighting? Coincidence? Yet even skeptics struggled to explain the change in energy, the way Jungkook seemed more attentive, the way Taehyung stayed closer than usual, like neither wanted to risk that fragile bubble breaking. For many, this moment became a turning point. Not because of the hicke itself, but because of what it symbolized, a rare slip, a crack in the polished surface, a glimpse of something real enough that it didn't bother hiding. Taekook didn't need to announce anything. They didn't need to clarify. They had already told the story, by forgetting the camera, by disappearing and returning changed, by standing together afterward like nothing in the world had gone wrong. And maybe, to them, nothing had.